Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Love Procurement Podcast. My name is Kelly Barner, and I'll be your host for this conversation. Today, I'm glad to welcome Sabrina Hueren. Sabrina is a manager and strategy consultant for Sourcing Champions, a boutique procurement consulting firm based in Amsterdam. So, hi, Sabrina, and hopefully I've not butchered your last name too horribly. Thank you so much for being with me.
Kelly, you did a perfect job.
Excellent. I at least had the spirit of adventure to try.
Yes,
Figured
I know.
trying
It's
is
not
half the
the
battle.
easiest. But yes,
So
perfect.
we know a little bit about where you work. We know, I'm very jealous, you're in Amsterdam, but can you speak
Yes.
a little bit more about your procurement experience before we dig into today's main topic?
Yes, of course. Very happy to. So, I have been a procurement passionate, I call it, since the start. So I started working approximately 7 years ago. And before that, I actually started studying purchasing and supply management. How did I get there? My professor was actually the one that really pushed me to it because he was so interesting. Because usually people go like, "Oh, marketing, sales, it's
Right.
sexy." However, I was listening to him and said like, "Yes, but like if you save €1 for your company, you have the euro, and that has
Yes.
such a big impact. And this impact is growing and growing." And I really enjoyed it, and I'm not regretting my decision to go through that through that studies. I really enjoyed it and became a procurement consultant at IBM back then in Germany. So I'm actually German. That's why my last name Huren with the Ü. And yeah, I've worked for 4 years as a procurement consultant at IBM. Also put my work in as a buyer myself, where I supported. So I always love to go through the pain stories of the buyers to really make
Oh, yeah.
really understand it. And yes, then afterwards I wanted to move back to the Netherlands, where I also studied. So yeah, and then I found Sourcing Champions. Have been at Sourcing Champions for 2 years now. Really enjoying my journey. Sourcing Champions, maybe just for you, is a small boutique consulting company, really focusing on procurement, and yeah, really enjoying the team. We're based in Amsterdam, and so really focusing on bringing the maximum value to procurement
Yeah.
worldwide.
Now, it's not that often I get to speak to somebody who studied procurement and supply chain academically before they ended up in the field. Usually, what happens is you study something else and you take a twisty, turny path and you end up in procurement. So, if you don't mind my asking, Sabrina, what is something that you either found different or that is notable to you that you learned in addition to when you think about what you were taught about procurement and supply chain academically
Mhm.
versus, let's say, procurement in practice or in the real world? What's something that's maybe a difference based on the fact that you actually have an academic background in this?
I really love the question. I do think that that during my studies, that it's really focused on really getting understanding on procurement, but also the innovation it has. However, because it's also evolving, the world is evolving. Sustainability,
True.
risk are coming more important, and I'm sure now this is also more integrated even in my studies back then. But now I can really see how procurement has like a role in that, and
Yeah.
because I'm working in that as well. So the market trends are really was something that procurement is also focusing on. So I really enjoy that, and also the social skills, like really working with people together.
Absolutely.
Because back then I always thought, oh my God, yes, the procurement team, they're sitting in the back, they're the backbone of the company. But you're so facing actually the world and going beyond your own company borders, and that I really love.
Excellent. Well, hopefully, anybody that's maybe hearing this interview that is in academics, stick with it. It is such a great field to work in. Now, in terms of where we're going to focus today, we're actually going to do, I don't know, maybe this is a little bit of like a back to school 101. We're going to focus on category management. To me, this is an interesting area within procurement because it's something we talk about a lot, but it's not necessarily something that has always been successfully executed, especially when you compare it to how much talk there is. So I think it's important to start right from the outset. Sabrina, how would you either define or explain category management in a conversation to make sure you and the other people you were working with had the same understanding?
Oh, perfect. I love this question. Sounds a little bit almost like back to school at university.
It does. I know we're staying with our academic theme.
Perfect. I really like this question. So maybe just dealing into that. So traditional procurement was really, really focused on specialized procurement, cost savings, right? That's how we get to know it. Like, okay, you include procurement and they just make you or give you a better price for what you want. However, nowadays with category management, it becomes really strategic. So it really focuses on the holistic management of spend, really across different groups. So the business units, which are also called then the categories, right? The purchase goods that you kind of really focus on. And you want to really drive the long-term value rather than only the savings, right? Understanding the total cost ownership. And I think this becomes also more and more important now, category management, because you also have to focus on risk, sustainability. There's so many legislations you have to focus on. Yeah. So yes, category management really becomes important for the future.
Yeah. And definitely important taking that holistic approach, but this wouldn't be a good conversation if we didn't have maybe a little bit of controversy. Category management has been tried so many times and for so long, and it has not always been successful. In your opinion, is category management still relevant given all of the changes we've seen to business objectives, technical capabilities, even procurement skills and how they intersect with the two? Do you think it's still a relevant strategy today?
Yes, I do think so. I mean, the world is becoming more complex, right? And it's not only nowadays to focus on cost, as I say, but we also need to look into the future. And for that, you as a company need to work with different kind of departments together. And procurement is the spider in the web in this, right? So you really need to use category management also for yourself as the procurement organization to really find common ground with your stakeholders, really understand the business requirements, really make also use of the, really also stay connected to the corporate goals of your company that then should also be translated in your category strategy. Right. So it is really relevant. I think it is even more relevant because time to market is just there, right? And it's just getting, you really need to focus on the trends, and staying connected to that is what category management does, to focus on really going with your company in the right direction. So I don't think it's bad or it's I think it becomes more important. And I think also the skills that you need as a category manager become more important to focus on, not only cost, but also focusing on other key topics. Technology, there are so many now, ChatGPT, there are new technology softwares that you need to use. So you become really a value driver to the company when you really focus on category management in the right way.
Now, Sabrina, a couple of times in our conversation today, we've talked about soft skills, although I feel like I know this is bad practice for a podcast. I'm going to do air quotes. You'll see me if you're on video. Soft skills, because they're not soft. These are very hard skills to master and use consistently in practice. We've also talked about collaboration. And so key to category management is how well procurement is able to work with their colleagues in the business, work with the executive team, work with suppliers. Is category management an opportunity to strengthen those relationships and potentially even improve internal perceptions of procurement?
Very good question, Kelly. Yes, definitely. I think it is a really good way to focus and bring your strategy to your key stakeholders, making sure that actually procurement comes the really shining star of the company. Because if the company doesn't understand your strategy as procurement, they will also oversee you. And we've seen that in many projects before, where procurement is seen like, oh, okay, they're doing their work. But because they are not showing their strategy to top management, to the key stakeholders, they don't even see that. They don't see how much work is put into this, right? Yeah. So you can actually use category management and your category strategy to showcase this to your key stakeholders, to use that platform also to get the key business requirements that you need for your category strategy, right? And really use that as a platform to push your category strategy forward to top management, get the approval, and make sure that you use that to update your strategy again and again, going in the right direction of the company's focus, right? And these social skills, you really need that. You really need to make sure you stay connected to top management, to the key stakeholders, and then also even a step further, you go beyond and focus on the suppliers, right? Because then you also need to start negotiating not only on price but also on other things. So yeah, it is really it's not an easy role, right? So I think the buyer or the category manager of the future will have to have a lot of skills. And I love that you also said not, you know, they are not really like the soft skills, but it is actually hard skills, because it is difficult,
very hard.
and it is the key that you need to move forward.
Well, I think one of the tricky things about category management in particular is that it's not something where you would put an hour in your calendar every Thursday where it says, oh, it's 2:00. It's time to do category management. Category management it's almost like a philosophical approach to bringing spend under management. It's a way of working, right? It's not a task that you would do. So I can definitely see where that's where the opportunity comes from around relationships, around better outcomes, around collaboration. But it also means that it takes a lot of time. We have to be thoughtful and knowledgeable and purposeful when we bring in category management, which also means we can't do it everywhere at once. So when procurement is looking at either top level categories of spend or groupings of suppliers or contracts where they feel like there's a strategic opportunity, what are some of the things that procurement should consider when deciding where to take an intentional category management approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think what is really important is to look at the categories, right? So what do you really want to focus on? And where do you need strong category management support, right? So first of all, is it a strategic direction that the category is supporting, right? So for instance, innovative new products, right, that you want to develop as a company, you need to also be really connected to category management, right? And need to make them involved. So if this is yes, I would say focus on it, right? Make sure that the category management is really strong here. Another important topic, of course, is always spend. If there's high spend in this category, you should look at it, right? I mean, there will be levers that you can take from it. And yes, so I think another one would also be risk. Nowadays, really important. Has always been important, because you need to make sure that what you're sourcing also is there in time, is the right quality, and so on. And if you are with suppliers that maybe are like far away in China or so on, there are of course different implications that come in. So you need to take these kind of decisions and mitigate your risk here as well, making sure that you focus on that, to have a strong category strategy in place in case something happens, right? You can see that in the world, there are wars happening, COVID happens. Hey, how do you make sure that you source what you really need? How do you also stay then connected with the category strategy, and that the key suppliers of your category to actually focus on that, right? So I think that is also nowadays really, really important, especially now with legislations coming in, CSRD, and so on. So I think these are really focus areas these are key factors that you can look at to see, do you need to spend a lot of time with this category, or is it maybe something that you don't need to look at? No, you need to look at every day, but making sure that you still have a category strategy in place, but maybe not as much focus as others.
Well, that's a good point, because yes, a lot of thought needs to go into developing the category strategy, but as beautiful as it might look and as thorough as it might be, if you finish it and immediately stick it up on a shelf, it's not going to deliver any results. So it needs to be something. I've heard the expression category playbook. I've heard the expression about needing to make sure that it's delivering results, that it's something that you can put into action. How can we make sure that after all we put all of the work into the strategy itself, that we're referencing it, that we're discussing the things in it, that we are using it to prevent risk or do a better job managing spend? How do we keep the category strategy alive?
It's a really good question. I love it because, often what we see is you write a category strategy on PowerPoint and then you put it in the folder and don't look for it maybe ever
It
again.
stays
So it's a
nice and
one-time
clean.
thing.
It doesn't get wrinkled, but it also delivers zero results.
Exactly. Or that you only look at it every year, which also
Yeah.
is not true. It's a continuous process. And yes, so really making sure that you focus on your category strategy here, to make it actionable, actually, is looking at the levers, at the key levers that you want to do with your category, right? Is it cost optimization? Is it innovation? Is it sustainability? So look at the levers at the category level and then think, okay, what are the key strategic objectives?
Yeah.
Short term, mid-term, and also long-term, right? So that you really have the holistic management approach of your category, right? So what are your short-term objectives? And then go a step further and also see what are the initiatives to actually reach that.
Yeah.
Make your strategic objectives smart, give them a goal, and then really make sure that you put initiatives in to actually achieve the goal. For your short term, of course, maybe with a high focus on midterm, long term as well, already start planning in initiatives. For instance, you want to become net zero by 2030, for instance. You can't start 2029 with that journey. So
Not and succeed.
Not a succeed, exactly.
Yeah.
Making sure that you bring in these initiatives, and also work on these and also stay connected to this, right? So I think it's like with category management, it's very holistic, right? And it can become a really value driver for procurement, right? If you are connected with your procurement or your framework strategy, your category strategy, your suppliers, but then also process and digital, and also performance and organization. So making sure that is connected, I think, is really important. So with your category strategy, you need to also be connected with your performance management and make sure that you move in the right direction, and also in touch with your management, understand, show them the progress, and get feedback. And then I think you will be on a more actionable way than just putting it into, the folder of your PowerPoint.
Now, if we actually think about that, because I know how common that is, I'm going to be honest, I've done that. I've put a category strategy in a drawer. What are some of the other reasons that might prevent a category strategy from delivering results? So obviously the big one is it doesn't get used. But what are some of the other, this is sort of like where we started with the difference between academic discussions of procurement and supply chain and real world, messy, complicated, busy conversations about procurement and supply chain. What are some of the other things that can prevent a category strategy from delivering results?
Yeah. So it needs to be also set up with a strong governance, right? So if you just do your category strategy, and everybody does it in a different format, different template, it will not be, it will not give the value that you need, right? So you really need to set it up in a strong way with strong templates, with the same approach, right? Do you look at the same market data? Make sure that you also connect to data points that you need, and also, really making sure that this is in a format that management will understand, right? So create a strong category strategy, go in deep, make an executive summary that you can then also showcase to your top management, right? And then set up this governance. So make sure that you don't put it away, right? Make sure that you schedule strategic cycles, looking at your category strategy maybe half a year, depending on how strategic it is, with your top management, with your key stakeholders, and then making sure that you make the best use out of it.
Now, we want category management to be something that procurement teams of all types, all shapes, all sizes, all maturity levels can think about factoring into their plans. I actually think very specifically about sort of two different kinds of scenarios I've seen and had the opportunity to work with. When I was first a practitioner, I was on a very large procurement team. And so you had, these are the 3 or 4 logistics people. These are the 3 or 4 services people. These are the 3 or 4 marketing people. And you can see very naturally where category management would fit into that type of an organization. But I've also worked with and supported procurement teams where it's a team of 5 or a team of 6, Maybe somebody has deep expertise in one category that's really important to that company. It could be something like fuel. It could be something around legal, depending on what industry they're in and what they do.
Mhm.
But everybody else on the team is something of a generalist, very
Mhm.
good at process, very strong analytically, good at negotiation, but doesn't necessarily bring with them a background in a category. Can category management succeed in both of these procurement models, or is it better suited to one over the other?
Oh, I like it. I like it. I think you can, as a generalist, also be very successful in category management because it's very strategic. And I do think actually that the knowledge that you learn, either from other categories that you worked in or even other positions, can really much help you in bringing, new innovation to your category strategy. So I think as a generalist, yes, you can become a strong category manager because it's a strategic position. It needs to give the holistic view, and you as the category manager need to make sure that the information that you need from the technical people you will get then either from the specialists that the key stakeholders, and stay connected to them, to have a strong category strategy that is then also technical. However, have the holistic view. I think you can also work as a generalist.
Let's stay with sort of the skills idea then. Whether
Mhm.
you do work in a company where you're dedicated to a group of categories or whether you're a generalist, what are some of the skills that a procurement professional might either want to see if they have or even invest to strengthen if they want to be effective in category management?
Mhm. I think the skill set of a category manager is actually developing, right? So back then it was really cost focused. So you needed to be a
Yeah.
good negotiator, right? I think you still need that, but there are new things are arising. So for instance, tools, technologies. You need to make best use of what you have, right? Do you have new softwares that you use? So I already mentioned earlier, but also become like a sustainability expert, a risk expert. So yes, I think you as the buyer of the future or the category manager of the future have a huge role, right? I think you need to make sure that you become very, like for this set of skills,
Mm,
become a more generalist because you need to. Or you will get like into situations that are totally different because sustainability is new, or maybe now you need to look at
yeah.
CO2. So I think this kind of motivation that you should have, right? Like, oh, I'm interested in that. I think that's what you need to become really strong. So motivated, and also very future looking, because situations change, and
They
you
sure
need to
do.
be agile, right? To actually
Yeah.
work that out. So I think agile in general is a good word for the category manager of the future. And with that, specific skills are coming, such as technology, sustainability, but still, of course, the cost cutting, and managing all of these, I think is really, really important.
So we've talked about strategy around category management. We've talked about skills around category management. Before we leave this, I want to ask about whether it's tools or frameworks. Are there any things that beyond strategy and skills can help a category management program as a whole be successful or even make it more efficient?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really much the case, right? So nowadays you do have softwares that can help you, right? So stay connected. So for instance, Evalua, right? Making sure that you have the full picture, in your of your category strategy. Also, when you look at supplier management or different
Mm,
process steps, right? I think it becomes really, really important, and also utilizing the technologies there are for that, right? Using potentially the AI of the future to create a strong category strategy, maybe with ideas you didn't even have before, right? So being open for that, I think, is really, really important. And so I think this digital focus will really help you also to
mm.
to to maximize most of the category strategies or the category management there is. So really making sure that you do supplier selection in the right way, the management in the right way, and then link to your category strategy, right? So I think digitalization is a big topic that can help you to push that forward.
Now, we like to wrap up all of these conversations, staying on theme, of course, by giving every guest an opportunity to share the love. So, if you had a piece of advice or a thought that you wanted to leave our audience with today, what would it be?
Love procurement, I think, is really, really important. I always said make procurement sexy because back then people didn't love it, right? They thought, oh
That's
my God,
true.
it's old fashioned, and it's not. It is such a like a role that will expand into something even more. Like you need to stay connected to the company goals. You need to stay connected to the people. You have the social skills. You have to be digital. You have to focus on sustainability, which is helping the world become better. So I
Yes.
think really spreading the love, make procurement great.
Well, Sabrina, this has been a fantastic conversation. Hopefully, we have inspired some people to either improve their current investments in category management or maybe start down that road. If people have enjoyed what we've talked about and they would like to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to connect?
Oh, feel free to just email me. I'm happy to share my email address, or you can also find me on LinkedIn. I love to have conversation of how procurement will actually develop over time and how the future also looks like, right? What are the future skills? I mean, I've been working for 7 years now, so I know I've seen many of your podcast participants have like 25 years and plus experience. And I'm with my 7 years, not as much, but I think bringing fresh wind in and
I
innovation in
agree.
will help, and staying then also with that connected to the generations under me, to make sure that we as we as humans actually help going forward. And I think procurement is the spider in the web in that.
And the passion and the enthusiasm, we
Going
need
beyond, exactly.
every bit as much, exactly, as we need long tenure. Sabrina, thank you so much for being with me today.